What's up, guys, and welcome to my ranking of the entire Omen franchise. I just got done reviewing every single one of these movies, so if you're a fan of this franchise, you want to see all of my more in-depth thoughts, I'll be putting cards throughout this video directing you to those individual reviews, or you can just go find the playlist, the Omen reviews. And also, if you are a fan of this franchise, be sure to hit that subscribe button, because at the end of this month, on Halloween, me and some friends are going to be doing a ranking video called 31 on 31 that we do every single year, where we take a bunch of different horror franchises, put them together under a certain theme, this year being Unholy Terrors, and The Omen is one of those franchises. So make sure you do not miss that. Hit that subscribe button now. Now, as far as the Omen franchise, three of these movies were first-time watches for me. I have always loved the original. I unfortunately was one of those people that thought that the remake was going to be good and then got my soul crushed in 2006. But this was an interesting franchise to go through, because for the first time I got to see the original Damien Thorne character grow up. Not necessarily to the best results in some of these movies, but it was an interesting ride. So, 5 movies ranked worst to best, and we're going to start off right now with the worst. The bottom of the barrel, number 5 for me is, I would say easily, but there was a pretty razor-thin difference between my number 5 and my number 4 for different reasons. But I landed on number 5 being Omen 4, The Awakening. This was a made-for-TV sequel years after the original Omen trilogy wrapped up the story somewhat cleanly, somewhat definitively as well. And then you get this, which is essentially a extremely low-quality, incompetently made retread of almost everything that the original movie did. Now, there's ways that you could retread that story and do it with a female and do it with a new generation and make it modern, but they just outright copy things from the first movie to the point where they don't add anything creative to it whatsoever. And when I found out that the director of Halloween 5 was the one that made this movie, and not only was he the one that made this movie, but he was doing such a shitty job making this shitty movie that they actually fired him before the end of production and had somebody come up and finish the job of this garbage movie. I don't think that Delia is really that interesting of a character. She's not anywhere near as interesting, as intimidating, or as iconic as Damien ever was. Has nothing to do with her being a female. It's just the way that they presented this character. She's not that intimidating. I thought that the Omen deaths, the accident deaths in this movie were fucking hilarious. This movie was on the cusp of being so bad that it's good, because I laughed out loud at numerous moments in this movie. There's actually a fight between two characters where one of them dies and this xylophone music starts going. This thing is absolutely unbearably incompetently made. As a long sentence. If it had just made me laugh a little bit more, or if the movie felt like it was slightly more self-aware at how terrible it was, this might have went up to number 4 just based off of my enjoyment alone. But as it is, not quite getting there, it's the worst of this franchise. Number 4 was the biggest disappointment on this list for me, because I'm a big Sam Neill fan, and he was terrible in my opinion in Omen 3, The Final Conflict. Now, I never really heard the fan base ever really say anything positive about this movie, or ever really defend it, or ever give any kind of redeeming qualities. I've always heard that it went way downhill after the second movie, and a couple of you guys just kind of came out of the woodworks when I said that this movie was trash, and you're like, you don't know shit, it's about this, he does this. Hey, whatever, it's subjectivity. I thought this movie was terrible. I thought that Sam Neill was going to be the thing that was going to be holding this thing up, keeping it out of the depths of hell of horror sequel territory, but no, because there's so many times where he has to give these monologues and he has to kind of talk directly to something, be it God, be it a statue, be it just out loud, that I felt like he was really hamming it up, and I felt like it didn't deliver for me. So for what I usually expect Sam Neill to do, that he usually delivers with ease, this was a crushing disappointment for his acting ability. Maybe it was just what they gave him. It might not even be completely his fault. But even just the story of this movie. So we're finally at adult Damien, and immediately you lose that creepy kid aspect that this franchise is known for. That's the iconic nature of the Omen, is creepy fucking kid. Now he's an adult, and he's not creepy anymore. And a lot of the elements that we loved from that original film, like the accidental deaths or this looming threat and that sense of dread that they somewhat held on to in the second movie, is completely gone here. So all you really have is kind of a political thriller to a certain extent. There's horror aspects, there's horror elements, there are some kills here. You know, there's a priest that gets covered in molten plastic that's on fire. There's a bunch of dogs that tear a guy apart, but it doesn't really have the same vibe as this franchise has made me expect it to have. So with that, all leading up to a very weak ending, and an ending that doesn't even make sense for me, and an ending that they quickly just, act like never happened in Omen 4, it's a very disappointing final conflict. Coming in at number 3 for me is the 2006 remake. Now, while on one side of my brain, I think this movie might be among the worst of this franchise and might deserve number 5, just for the sake that they take a movie and basically carbon copy it and release it again in 2006. That infuriates me. I'm somebody that defends remakes. I'm somebody that champions remakes and always wants them to do well. And when you just plagiarize cinematically a movie and just shit it right back out and say, hey, we did the same thing again with a couple of tweaks. Isn't it cool? Don't we get some credit? No, you don't get any fucking credit. So part of my brain wanted to put this at number 5 just as a kind of middle finger to this movie. But if I'm being objective, which I try to be amongst all of my subjectivity, there's no way that I can say this is a worse film than the two below it. Because even though it is carbon copy of the original film's a great film. So if you just watch this on its own merits, it's watchable. I mean, it's a movie that you can get through. It's not like it's insulting you. It's not like I want to, rip the disc out and snap it in half. There's competent performances here. I do like Liev Schreiber. I do like Julia Stiles in the role. And I think to a certain aspect, their performances have aged a lot better than the performances in the original film, and we can debate that. I think that there are some good kills here, like namely the kill of the priest where he gets impaled. This one is amped up a little bit more carnage in it, and I really like that. It's a very well-directed movie as far as the visuals and as far as the camera work and as far as the atmosphere. Unfortunately, it's missing all of that dread, and it's missing all of that that looming threat that we had in the original film. And the kid's not anywhere near as good because he's so on-the-nose creepy that it just doesn't have the same effect. Mrs. Baylock is not even close to as effective as she was in the original film. And like I said, the biggest thing that pisses me off about it is they didn't do anything new. So many things you could do new with this movie. So many things you could do to modernize it, and they just do a couple here and there. There's, 85% of this movie is damn near identical to the original film, and the script is 100% identical. So it's a movie that I'll honestly probably never watch again, unless I'm doing some kind of a Omen binge, or if I end up putting it in a ranking somewhere down the road, I need to refresh. But on its surface, it's watchable. Number 2 is gonna be Damien, Omen 2. Now, this movie, I feel like, is a different type of film than the original. And maybe that's an expectation that I shouldn't have had walking into this. I might have enjoyed it a little bit more, and maybe over time I will begin to appreciate it more. This one kind of gets rid of a lot of that looming threat and a lot of that sense of dread that I keep talking about that the first film did masterfully, and this kind of becomes more of a slasher film in a certain aspect. We have those Omen accident deaths again, but we don't have that Omen element about this foreboding picture or some kind of a sign that something's going to happen. People learn that Damien might be a threat and then immediately just get killed off, either by a crow pecking her eyes out and throwing her in the middle of a street, or a guy getting sliced in half at an elevator, or a dude falling into the ice at a hockey game. And if you like slashers, if you like kills, if you like carnage, there's some good carnage in this movie, and they do certainly base the movie around these little kill set pieces. I think that the kid that plays Damien in this movie does a really good job, and I am interested in him still. He's older, but he's still a creepy kid, so you still get that classic Omen vibe here. But the movie is pretty thin on story. It's basically just about the kills. It's just about Damien being impenetrable, and everybody that comes near him is going to die violently. And if you're in the mood for that, this movie can deliver that. Unfortunately, I just much prefer the approach of the original film to something like this. There's moments where this film really stands on its own, and I think there was ways to make this as interesting as the first film by making Damien a little bit conflicted about his lineage, about his fate, and about his legacy to be the son of Satan and rise up and take everything away from the world. But they only hint at that for one scene where he runs out into the lake and goes, "Why me?" And then immediately after that, he's an evil little prick again. So big missed opportunity here, but somewhat enjoyable slasher type sequel, which obviously leaves number 1 as the original Omen. I love this movie. I'm not really somebody that tends to love a lot of horror from the 70s, despite a few classics, obviously. I'm somebody that much more kind of radiates to the 80s style horror. That's pretty much where my bread and butter is. But this is one of those 70s horror classics that I've always loved, that I've always adored, and I've always had at the top of my list of favorite horror films. So this movie does a great job at introducing this terrifying concept about what if you found out that your kid was a gigantic threat. Not only a gigantic threat, but the son of the devil. What are you going to do about that? And that, as a parent, is a very terrifying concept, because now it is on you to stop the Armageddon, to stop the apocalypse. And the only way you got to do that, pretty easy, just stab the shit out of the kid that you've been raising for his entire life. So yeah, there's this terrifying aspect to this movie, much like Pet Sematary, that has grown more terrifying as I've gotten older and become a parent. But just as a horror film, that's just a great concept. And the way that they slowly reveal things throughout this movie, where everything seems hunky-dory, they bring the kid home, he's smiley, he's cute, he's happy, and then they're at his 5th birthday party, and no big deal, his nanny just hangs herself as like a sacrifice, as a display of dedication, all for Damien. And from then on, the movie just never stops. It's just reveal after tension, after building dread, to where you got people that are dying in all these mysterious accidents. You can't figure out why. You can't figure out if there's even a way to stop it. You have Mrs. Baylock, which is a great terrifying character that comes in as the protector of Damien, along with that Rottweiler. You've got all the way through to the end of the movie where the parents don't really believe it, but slowly start to. And by the time they start to, it's almost too late. And are they going to be able to do this? Are they going to be able to do it in time? It's just a ratcheting tension exploration of a horror film that I think holds up perfectly. Some of the performances are a little bit old school, maybe don't age so well, namely Gregory Peck and his wife, but for the time, for the era that this movie came out, they were great performances, and I think for the most part they still hold up good enough to where this is a timeless classic. So The Omen, one of the best horror films of all time, easily #1 on this list. So what do you guys think of the Omen franchise? What are your favorites? What are your least favorites? Let me know down below. Be respectful about it, for the love of God. We are all movie fans. We all have different tastes. Let's talk about that down below. Not like, what the hell, you put this here? Yes, I did. Deal with it. Like and share this video, please. Help get some extra eyes on it. Get some new subscribers. If you are finding me for the first time, like I said, I've reviewed all these movies, and we're going to be ranking this along with some other horror franchises that fit the theme of unholy terrors here in just a couple of weeks on Halloween. So be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you do not miss any of that. If you guys enjoyed this video to the point that you want to help contribute to this channel financially, help keep the lights on, as well as get cool exclusive perks, exclusive content for your eyes only for that contribution, please check my Patreon link down below, and I appreciate your consideration for that. Thank you for watching as always, and remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.